I'm
Great.
recording it right now. So Beth Wallace is going to be teaching us all about vitamin D tonight, as you can see on the screen. So Beth, give us a little bit about you and go to it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am a community dietitian and a weight loss coach. I'm also a personal trainer if anybody's interested. We had to stole this from our World Conference seminar. So a little bit about vitamin D and about you. If you know anyone, or perhaps you yourself might have muscle aches or bone aches, osteopenia or osteoporosis, any disruptions in sleep patterns such as insomnia, high blood pressure, mood swings like seasonal depression, failing health of your eyesight. A lot of people as we get older get nearsightedness. If you're prone to cavities, soft teeth, or splintering teeth, these things can all be symptoms of low vitamin D. And also, I want to put on that list, if you're pregnant or know anyone that's pregnant, vitamin D is really vital to bone health in like the shape of bones, the shape of the skull, the shape of femurs, things like that. So it's pretty important, I think, for vitamin D. In fact, many dietitians, when we become pregnant ourselves, we usually triple our intake of vitamin D because it leaches so much into that baby. So let's move on here. Okay, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Quick thing about that, the Food and Drug Administration does not regulate any vitamin. So this statement is by law on every vitamin. Also, only drugs can be regulated to say that they diagnose, treat, and cure. So vitamin D, let's move on. Enter. It's found in all different cells throughout the body. It's a fat-soluble nutrient that's naturally present in very few foods. It's added to other foods to lightly fortify them, and it's available as a dietary supplement. And that's pretty much what we'll be talking about today. D is needed for bone growth and bone remodeling. So when a bone breaks, we need D again to help replenish that. It enables normal mineralization of bone and teeth because it promotes the calcium absorption in the gut and maintains adequate serum calcium, which is the calcium and phosphate within your blood. So when it keeps that at a normal level, it can regulate all the bones, remineralize your teeth and your bone. Without sufficient vitamin D, the bones become thin and brittle and misshapen. This is one of the things I was talking about earlier with babies. But when they're children, this can be known as rickets, and you might have heard of rickets way back when, but it's becoming more popular, which is scary, especially in the Northeast region where we have a lot less sun and a lot less availability for vitamin D. In an adult, as you know, that's called osteomalacia, which is that huge umbrella of osteopenia and osteoporosis, all of these bone health issues that happen in older adults. As we get older, our ability to make vitamin D gets weakened. So vitamin D is basically important for the entire body all over. Even nerves need vitamin D to carry messages to contract muscles, to move the body. The immune system needs D to fight off invading bacteria and viruses. It's really an amazing hormone. So I have up here right now vitamin D in the news. Why is it in the news so much? Well, I just talked about all the different amazing things that it does. So why is it in the news? Well, it's being studied right now, and really within the last 10 years it's been heavily studied for its connections for several diseases and medical problems like diabetes and hypertension, autoimmune conditions such as multiple sclerosis for one, different types of cancers, and some bone disorders, things like that. So you see up on the screen it's vital for heart health. Sunscreens can be blocked. Pediatricians are doubling the vitamin D requirement. Eyes on Health even reports that the lack of D can double your risk of stroke. So let's move on. More than 1 billion people worldwide don't consume adequate amounts of vitamin D. 1 billion people with a B. 100 million people don't take in enough D. More than 50% of women that are fighting conditions of osteoporosis are not taking in, they're fighting osteoporosis with calcium, but they don't have optimal levels of D to uptake that calcium. What else is going on here? Without adequate D, only 15% at most is being absorbed. So that's the important part about that slide. Enter. All right, there's a lot going on here. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. The body makes D when it's exposed to the sunlight. You can see my little sun shining over there. What happens is the sun's UVB rays hit the skin, and that triggers a cholesterol molecule in your skin. Yes, cholesterol, I said it, it's good for you. This cholesterol turns into kind of a precursor of vitamin D called calciferol. To make this new vitamin D active, D has to go through a lot of processes in the body. They're called hydroxylations. So quickly, a hydroxylation is just a chemical hydroxyl group, goes through the liver, and your liver will process this one hydroxyl group onto your D3. This is making it pre-D3. It's kind of locally active in your body. It can't do much from here until it hits your kidneys. From your kidneys, this is where it really becomes this D3 form that we all know that can really help maintain your calcium balance in your body. This is it. This is where it becomes a steroid hormone. Now, steroid hormones, that might sound scary to you, but a hormone means that it can be produced at one part in your body and work all over your entire body. So even though it's made over here in this kidney, it can go through your entire body. We see D cells everywhere in your body. So before I change this slide, one important note here. The darker your skin, the greater your requirements for vitamin D supplementation. As you can see where that sun is coming into your skin, the more melanin that you have in your skin, the more pigment that's in there, the more it will interfere with the absorption of those sun rays. Also, the heavier someone is, the greater need for vitamin D supplementation, because B, as I said earlier, is fat soluble. It's the first note on this slide. It's fat soluble. What that means is any excess fat that you have in your body is going to suck up that vitamin D and prevent it from doing its job throughout the rest of the body. So I think that's pretty interesting myself. Vitamin D promotes proper synthesis and functioning. You can read this slide. D promotes calcium absorption in the gut. That's one of its main things, is to maintain this adequate serum calcium and phosphate. That mineralizes your bones, keeps your bones and your teeth hard. It's also needed for bone growth, regrowth, remodeling, prevents rickets. I discussed that a little bit. D also has other roles in the body, including modulation of cell growth, if I can get that word out. It doesn't let your cells get too big, doesn't keep them too small, make sure that everything's processing well. Because it starts out as your cholesterol molecule, cholesterol is what forms those cell walls. So that's pretty important, where we have D to help modulate what's going on in there. Neuromuscular and immune function, I discussed the neuromuscular a little bit because D helps regulate those neurons, those nerve impulses that tell your body when to move, how to contract, and where to move. And it reduces inflammation. So that's pretty important for a lot of your other health concerns. So foods that have vitamin D, because I'm sure you're thinking, and as a dietitian, I'm always thinking, how can I get this food into my body as a food? What's its most available source? Well, not a lot of foods contain high enough levels of vitamin D. I always think vitamin D oysters, and actually that was one of the lowest. I think it only has about 48 IUs. It didn't even make it to this slide. And that was one of the things that I had learned as a dietitian. That's one of your higher sources. So there you go. Salmon is pretty high. Again, we're talking about wild fish here is going to have more. Fortified milk has 98 IUs. Important to note, a lot of dairy doesn't have fortification. So milk has fortification, but if you're talking about cheese or yogurts, they're usually not fortified with this vitamin D. So that's pretty important. Yeah, okay, 360 IUs. Well, here's your recommended daily allowance. From birth to 12 months, they say about 400 international units. Up until about 13, you're looking at 600. Important to note, they've nearly doubled that since this slide came out. Teens, 14 to 18, you're looking at 600 to 1,200 again. Older adults need a lot more. They need 800 because their skin at that age is not it's not able to uptake the cholesterol as well. It's not able to take in the sun's rays as well. That those UVB rays is what I'm trying to say. They don't uptake the UVB as much. So, why vitamin K2? Why do we put these two together? Well, we discussed that vitamin D will help the body absorb calcium. Well, these metaquaones, or another word for your vitamin K protein, they create the need for vitamin K. Vitamin K promotes normal calcium absorption and guides the calcium to the bone and teeth. It's almost like the taxi. All right, so vitamin D will tell you how to absorb it. Okay, put this one in the taxi. This one's ready to go. So the taxi's ready. That's your vitamin K. Now your vitamin K can drive it over to the teeth and bones. And that's how I look at it. So it brings it right where it needs to be, makes it more bioavailable. Vitamin K2 is the most bioavailable. In D, when we have enough D in your body, D triggers the need for more K, right? So if we see all this D coming along, D will grab the calcium and say, we need the taxi. That's your K2. If there are no taxis going around, guess what? The calcium isn't making it to where it needs to be. So this is why it says addresses the calcium paradox. I don't know if that sounds interesting to any of you, but I'm a dietitian. I'm all about that. Here we go. Calcium paradox is kind of a twofold problem. In the United States, we have the highest consumption of dairy products worldwide, yet we also have the highest incidence for osteoporosis. Is that scary to anybody? Okay, so our physicians have prescribed calcium, in some cases calcium and vitamin D, to alleviate this problem, but instead of this calcium causing people with less osteoporosis, this calcium is causing more people with more heart attacks and stroke. There's your paradox number 2. Okay, so we still have more osteoporosis, but now we have more heart attacks and stroke. Vitamin K2, I told you that's the taxi cab, right? But not only is it shuttling the calcium where it needs to go, when it's off duty, when it doesn't have the calcium and vitamin D with it, it's cleaning up your soft tissue. It's alleviating this problem from your arteries, from your vessels, stopping that calcification. I know you've heard this before, the hardening of artery walls, the hardening of the heart, the hardening of fat. It's going to clean all of that up. That's what it does off duty. That's pretty awesome, right? So everybody needs K2. Everybody needs K2. If you know anyone with hypertension, K2 is pretty essential for them. High blood pressure, hypertension. Let's move on. Now, unfortunately, the research for K2 is fairly new. These metaquaones don't have much delineation in literature, so most people think that when you talk about vitamin K, they think you're talking about this highly absorbable vitamin form that comes from leafy greens. It's excellent in blood clotting. It's really easy to get into your diet. That's not what we're talking about. Vitamin K, that's vitamin K1. Vitamin K2 is only about 10% of what you would take in when you take in vitamin K as that general term. Vitamin K2 is generally found in fermented foods. So if you have a lot of natto in your diet, or brie, some Gouda cheeses, goose liver pate, I know it doesn't sound like foods that you and I may eat, But in some pretty heart-healthy, like French cultures, they do eat this food, so they are getting it in their diet. I'm not. I don't know about you guys. It's not coming from me. So let's move on. So why do we take vitamin D and K supplementation? Well, most people, like we said, are vitamin D deficient or insufficient. Deficient, we already said, 100 million people are vitamin D deficient. I just think that's an astonishing number if you can wrap your head around it. Or we have insufficient sun exposure. I'm just going to spend a minute on sun exposure. If we draw a line on the map of the United States from LA across the map to Atlanta, if you are above that line, you are not getting adequate sun exposure. If you are below that line, okay, or near that line, for 3 months, in June, July, and August, you are getting adequate sun exposure. Now, vitamin D can be synthesized and stays in your body for about, in healthy people, 3 to 5 months. In healthy people, 3 to 5 months. So this is fitting to me that we're doing this talk in March. Do you know what this means? This means that the most sun exposure your body has gotten has been in December. That's pretty scary. We have not, especially in New England, I live up here in New Hampshire, we are not getting adequate sun. And especially if you're dark, especially if you're overweight, we've already discussed a few of these things. Very little K also is stored in the body. Dr. Oz just did a talk pretty recently on ABC News. I don't know if you follow Dr. Oz at all, but I liked what he said. Vitamin D is fat soluble. It can be stored in the fat. It can be stored in the body. Again, only 3 to 5 months. If you intake 5 times more water, you will die faster than if you take in 5 times more vitamin D than your body needs. So I thought that was pretty cool. So everyone needs to be on this. You can definitely take a test to check your vitamin D levels. And like I said, you should be between 600 to 800 IUs is what you should be taking in at minimum. Okay, so this is what we have for our requirements. This is what we have for not just general health. This is for optimal health. It's shown that people can take over 5,000 IUs. Dr. Oz suggests that you take 4,000 IUs plus your regular multivitamin that will have that in it. So this is right in line with what we should all be taking, and of course your K2 to help that taxi cab bring it where it needs to be. Health benefits, maintains bone health. I'm just reiterating everything we went over earlier. Proper normal bone density, that mineralization, promotes proper synthesis of essential proteins to uptake that calcium, maintains cardiovascular health. Remember, we're going to sweep out all of the calcification from where it doesn't need to be. Same thing with promoting the healthy arteries, promotes the somebody help me with this, elasticity of blood vessels. Let's help them stretch. Once we calcify those things, they're not going anywhere. But thanks to that vitamin K, we're going to sweep it all out. Maintains normal blood pressure, same thing. Cell health, we talked about the cell structure because of the cholesterol molecule, and supports immune function. It also, again, will stop your inflammation. Why wouldn't it? We're taking out all that calcium from where it doesn't belong. That's what's going to stop the inflammation. Who would benefit? Everyone. Everyone. If you have bones, this will help you. It helps strengthen your bones and teeth, helps your immune system, cardiovascular health, nutrient absorption. Why not? Sweep out all that stuff so we can absorb the nutrients in the gut and throughout the body where we need it, and optimize overall health. This is my information. If you need any information about vitamin D particularly, you can ask me. Any information about the Isotonix line and how they're absorbed so quickly, ask the person that brought you to this call. That's all the information I have for you on this slide. So feel free to ask me questions, and I'm around.
Beth, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Phenomenal. I'm just going to stop the recording.